So join me in welcoming Alicia Kramer.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. It's actually really nice that you did that round robin because now I feel like I know all of you guys. So here I am speaking to you all professional speakers, and this is not going to be a speech. So this is going to be much more interactive. It's going to be more like doing a session with me because I want you to actually experience some shifts. So as you were all taking turns, sharing some of your different mindset related challenges, notice the diversity. Everyone has their own unique challenges. That's just the way we are, right? We have our preconceived fears, self-doubts, limiting beliefs, and we all have our own unique desires. So I would be willing to bet that not every one of you has the same vision for yourself as a professional speaker. Some of you may actually see yourself just doing small, more intimate little venues. Others may be seeing yourself up there with Tony Robbins. The key here is that we want you to get aligned with your vision. And that also means you've got to get out of your own way. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as we get into this, I'm going to ask you to be very honest with yourself. You don't have to share any of your intimate challenges with anyone else. This is luckily an inner process. But self-honesty is absolutely essential because what we want to do is we want to start uprooting some of your limiting beliefs. So we're going to talk about some of your fears, some of your self-doubts, some of the things that have been tripping or stumbling points with your confidence. Mark mentioned imposter syndrome, which I like to say is really just this nice umbrella term that people use for insecurities. And if we're going to be really honest, which I think, Amy, you had brought up, everyone is experiencing this. And what a lot of people don't realize is it's a natural thing. Anytime you are embarking on something new, there are no knowns in your subconscious mind. So knowns basically are all those things that you've said, you've heard, you've done before, things that you've got a frame of reference for. If your mind does not have a frame of reference for being up on a stage in front of 1,000 people, it's that it's going to cause a little bit of a freak out. All the warning bells start going off. You're starting to question this image that I have of myself being up there doing that. Does that fit the self-image that I've previously had of myself? And in most cases, it doesn't because you haven't done it before. So when I'm working with business owners in any different industry, or really anyone for that matter, it doesn't matter if you're an aspiring golfer, an aspiring speaker, an aspiring entrepreneur, if you're raising your prices. When you are doing something that you've never done before, especially something that might directly conflict with some of your pre-existing beliefs and expectations, you're going to experience a lot of those inner conflicting thoughts and feelings. The good news is we can use our mind to actually create new knowns, new associations, and sort of prime ourselves before taking those new actions so that we're going into it with a foundational level of confidence. So, also want to briefly mention here, I heard money mindset stuff come up. And I'm just curious how many of you, if you're really honest, if you're willing to just raise a hand, have experienced a little bit of apprehension going forward because of the money side of things. Okay. Thank you for being honest, because I work with some very, very, very successful individuals. And when I say successful, I'm saying financially, probably like, ooh, that would be nice. Still are bumping up against self-imposed limitations around money. So we want to weave a little bit of that in as well, because ultimately, even though we don't have a lot of time and I can't get in your head and clean up all the limiting beliefs, I would love for you to feel a little bit more empowered about going forward, feeling like you've got the foundation to go out there, take those actions, ask for what you're worth. Know that you're just going to keep getting better and better. Know that you are valuable, that you do have a valuable message to share. And somebody said it, I can't remember who, so I'm apologizing for not giving credit where credit is due. But there is something to be said about when you know in your heart that what you're delivering is valuable, there is a natural confidence. There is a natural charisma. When you feel good about you, you are naturally exuding that more positive energy that is so magnetic and attractive to other people. Not because you're pretending to be someone you're not, or you're pretending to be more perfect than you are, but just being good with you. And that oftentimes means you got to start letting go of the fears, the self-doubt, the insecurities, little by little, one by one, as they come up. And that's what I'm going to teach you how to do today. So, are you guys ready to learn how to do some releasing? So, releasing is something we do automatically, naturally. Now, if you've heard of EFT, which is short for emotional freedom techniques, if you've heard of the release technique, if you've heard of breath work, all of these are just different forms of releasing emotion. And what a lot of people get tripped up on is you don't need anything fancy, any special practitioners, any wild, crazy, innovative new trainings in order to release your negative emotions that are entangled with your limiting beliefs. But you do need to be very mindful and you need to be proactive. So I'm going to take you through sort of introductory releasing 101 so that we can identify some of your fears, some of your doubts, some of those insecurities, and we can actually start to take the negative emotional charge off of them. When you have any type of fear, whatever it is, think of a fear that you've got right now. Everybody's got plenty of them, so I'm sure you can all pull one out of your mental bank. And notice that when you think about it, you feel a sensation in your body. That is energy. So we're not going to get all metaphysical here, but even Einstein said everything is energy. Our thoughts are energy, our emotions are energy. We can feel it as a physical sensation in our body. So what we want to do is recognize that when we have a reoccurring fear, a reoccurring limiting belief, we feel it. That's the first part. That's the awareness part. When we feel it, that's like the little bell that goes off that alerts us, okay, there is something here that I need to clean up. What a lot of people don't realize is that we are inadvertently holding on to that energy. So if you don't have a hang up on something and you're walking down the street and somebody gives you a really ugly, dirty look, you feel a little bit of negative emotion, right? Might be like, what the hell's their problem? But unless you have some kind of belief that gets triggered, like, oh, see, they noticed that extra 5 pounds, and that's a hang up for you. If you don't have one of those things triggered, you just feel the negative emotion and you release it naturally. You get on with your life, your mind goes on to other things, it's a non-issue. But if it triggers one of those old pesky fears or insecurities, well, now you're walking down the street 20 minutes later, still pissed off about it. Thinking about how, see, I just can't go anywhere. I knew I shouldn't have worn this shirt, whatever, right? It could be an issue that now has triggered you not only the entire day, but sometimes for days, weeks, or even months. When we have that type of negative response, there is a tendency to want to push the negative feeling away. So you'll hear people say, oh, just, positive talk yourself out of it. Well, notice that rarely ever works because it's an overcompensation. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. It's not a very effective strategy if you have a lot of built up negative emotional charge. So we want to heal it properly. And we do that by processing out, releasing the negative emotional charge, because those things that we don't have the negative emotional charge on, like I said before, it's a non-issue. So we want to turn our previous fears, our previous self-doubts, all of those annoying, negative feelings, we want to release those and turn them into non-issues so that they're not directly interfering as you're taking actions to grow your speaking business, to ask for your fees, to get up there and be that confident, charismatic person that you in your heart desire to be. So now I want you to go back to that fear. Feel it. Promise it won't hurt for long. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and we're going to actually drop the head down. You don't always have to do this. Once you know how to do this, you can be walking down the street with your eyes wide open doing this. But for now, I want you to actually experience the physical sensation of releasing that emotional charge. Okay. So drop the head down a little bit. If it helps, close your eyes because that shuts off all of that extra stimuli. And what we're doing is we're notice the thought, the fear, notice the feeling, notice where it is in your body. Notice it feels kind of constricted and your body feels like it's contracting a little bit. And what we're going to do now is with our intention, you're just going to say yes to allowing the feeling to rise up and let it pass through. We're not saying yes to the fear. We're saying yes to allowing the energy to actually flow. When you do this, you're going to notice that where in the past there was a lot of that constriction, if you keep saying yes with intention to letting it come up, letting it flow through, it's going to start to soften a little bit. Now, if it is a really strong fear, you might notice some resistance to that. Say yes to the resistance. It's just a feeling. It's just energy. The mind is always trying to protect us with fear. And so when your mind is saying, no, don't do that, it's not safe, the intention is good, but as you know, it's holding you back. And so it's not actually a very empowering thing. There's always a more empowering way of thinking, perceiving, and feeling than fear, always. So notice the feeling, and we're just going to pull up a little bit more of that fear, some type of limiting belief or discomfort that you're experiencing. And just with your intention, welcome it up, pull it up. And what you're going to notice is that most people will experience the feeling comes up and out either through the top of their head or they're breathing it out. Whatever your process is perfect for you. There is no one way that is the same for everyone. Everybody experiences it a little bit differently, but you're going to notice that whatever that way is for you, you can replicate it anytime. So you just become aware of any of those uncomfortable thoughts or feelings. And instead of pushing it away, say yes to the fear. Remember, we're not saying yes to the thing we don't want. We're simply saying yes to allowing the energy to come up and allowing it to pass through. Energy is always in a constant state of motion. You do not have to hold on to it. It is not serving you. Give yourself permission to release and let it go. Now, at this stage, you might feel a little bit lighter, or another thought that's kind of piggybacking off of that one comes up. So we know that that's how the mind likes to work. We've got sort of this compounded problem with all sorts of negative self-talk. So if other feelings are coming up, if other negative thoughts are coming up, you just continue the process and you just observe. You observe the wacky thoughts, you observe the negative feelings, and you're just letting it come up, you're letting it pass through. And it seems so simple that many people would discount it. And yet, what a lot of people fail to recognize is that the most valuable, important things in our life, like breathing oxygen, is simple, it's natural, it's normal, and we need to re-normalize our ability to release the stuff that got impressed upon our subconscious mind that does not serve us. But if you don't, it just continues to get triggered and play out over and over and over again, like a broken record that never shuts the hell up. So we just did a really, really, really simple releasing process. I want to open up the floor here to questions, because I know that sometimes these types of things are kind of new and people don't know if they did it right or they had some kind of weird experience and need a little clarification. So does anybody have questions or have a weird feeling, resistance, or any challenge? Yes, Mark.
So to your point, how does one know that we did it right? Like, how do you know what you're feeling is what you're supposed to be feeling? And when you feel that release and you feel how much of it is, oh, I'm feeling the release versus, oh, I think I feel the release.
So it's pretty cut and dry, actually. You either feel better or you don't, right? So it's kind of funny how we do this mental crap to ourselves all the time. Always second guessing. You could have the clearest inner guidance in the world, and you're just like, I'm not sure. Maybe I should go ask that person over there. At some point, you've got to trust yourself. You can feel it. You were negative and now you're not. You were afraid and now you feel relief. You were really stressed out. Now you feel a little bit better. It's an actual sensation physically, but it's also an emotional thing. So we interpret our state through our emotions, correct? And really, that's what you're delivering when you do a talk. You're influencing people to have specific emotional responses. And the reason that that's so critical and important is because that's the language of the subconscious mind. If you can inspire someone, you could change their life. If you're giving the best presentation in terms of all of these wonderful factual statistics, but it's so flippin' boring that nobody is getting anything out of it, it doesn't matter how great the content is that you gave, it's not going to move people. It's not going to really anchor into their subconscious mind. Well, you're programming yourself every single day, because anytime you're in a highly charged emotional state, whether it's positive or negative, you're in a heightened state of suggestibility and you're reinforcing that programming in your own subconscious mind. So how do we fix the damage that's already been done? We actually need to neutralize it. And we do that by releasing the negative emotional charge. So on a really practical level, any one of you could think about somebody or, someone really hurt you. Maybe it was back in high school, your best friend, kissed your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you were just heartbroken. It was the greatest betrayal ever. And you harbored that anger and that frustration and all of that pain for so long. And then something shifted. You got a little older, a little wiser, and you were like, you know what? It's not worth it. And you naturally released and let go of the energy. And now you can think back on that old scenario that once had you so triggered anytime you thought of it. And you think about it, and it's just a neutralized memory. You remember that it happened, but there's no negative emotional charge. And so that's essentially what we're manufacturing as we go through this particular exercise, rather than sort of bumping through life and it will maybe happen naturally or maybe not. We are saying, okay, I feel a really negative emotion here, and I know it is holding me back. And so I'm going to take some time and I'm going to process it out. Now, remember I said sometimes they're piggyback thoughts. So sometimes you have to sit with yourself and you've got to let this stuff come up. And one of the exercises that can be really, really, really powerful is to actually sit down with a notepad and a pen, and you're going to ask yourself 2 questions. The first one is, this subject matter, what do I believe about that? And you just are going to write down everything that comes to your mind, because a lot of your stories of limitation, you've rehearsed so often, you give your mind a chance to tell you all about your limitations, and it is happy to oblige. Okay. The second question is, if I imagine myself doing the thing that I want to do, charging the fees, standing up in front of all of these people, whatever it is, at first you're going to notice there's a little bit of excitement, right? But then there's also the nerves. And what you're going to notice is there is oftentimes a bunch of negative emotions that are all tangled up with your happy vision of success. And when you look at that, that's going to show you what your limiting beliefs are. What do I actually believe about this? What do I actually expect is really going to happen? Because we want to reprogram the mind with the vision of you standing on the stage and getting the standing ovation and the bank account full of money, because that's impressing upon the subconscious mind in a really empowering way. But you've got all those conflicting beliefs and expectations. Guess what? That's why you don't want to make those phone calls, Mark. There's a fear there. There's some negative image that you have in your subconscious mind. We want to identify that so we can finally challenge that old belief. And what I mean by challenging the belief is, most of our fears are completely irrational. They're nonsensical. When somebody would come into my hypnotherapy practice and they would have a fear of heights, for instance, one of the reasons that the mind so wants to hold on to that fear is because it has this really wacky idea that if I let go of this fear, I'm going to do something dangerous and it's going to be really bad. If I let go of this fear, I'm going to go walking off that 10-story building. I just know it. I'm not going to be careful enough, and something really terrible is going to happen. I am not letting go of the fear. Now, you're not logically thinking that, but if we were to give the crazy mind a voice, it would say something like that. But if we're really honest and objective about it, we see clearly that's not the way it works. Someone who does not have an irrational fear of heights does not necessarily go out and do stupid things, or there'd be a lot more dead people and a lot less people on the planet, right? So it's irrational. When you're calm, you have a you have a concept of what is safe and what is not safe. You have an inner guidance system that's been divinely implanted in you. You're not going to run off the rails on, crazy train. Okay. So we have to look at those things. So those things that you wrote down, those things that you're afraid of, look at them and challenge them. Is that really what's going to happen? If I ask for $5,000 for my next speaking engagement, what is your mind telling you? They're going to laugh at you. They're going to tell you to take a hike. No one is ever going to hire you for that fee. So you might as well just flush all of your work to become a professional speaker right down the toilet. There's no going back once that has come out of your mouth. You've got to challenge it. Is that really going to happen? If somebody did actually say no to you, does that mean everybody's going to say no to you? We've got to become objective, because when we can show our fearful mind that what it's afraid of is somewhat irrational, somewhat nonsensical, probably improbable, well, now the mind sort of softens up its grip. So just like the example of the person who's afraid of heights, if you could show their mind, demonstrate to their mind, explain to their mind that, look at this person over here. They don't have that fear and they're not doing anything dangerous. Oh, and look at that person over there. And now all of a sudden they start to see all of this evidence. And then the mind says, oh, okay, maybe it's okay if I let this fear go. Then we can release. Then, to your point, Mark, when you feel yourself surrender and release that negative energy, it really does feel different. Now, when you think about it, you're not all of a sudden going into the fear response, feeling constricted. Now it's like, you know what? Yeah, I could send that email and quote my price at $5,000. Worst things, they're going to say no. It's okay. And you've shifted. And that is where all of that really positive change begins to take place, because now you're not blocking yourself from sending that email, from quoting that price, from doing that thing that you want to do. Now you're willing to start to take those new actions, and action builds confidence. So I know I don't have a whole lot of time, and I know we want to cover a little bit more, but I just want to make sure that if anybody has any questions, I can answer them. So, everybody good?
So if we
Okay.
think of it this way, Alicia, it's basically we shouldn't listen to ourselves. We should talk to ourselves.
No, you're always listening to yourself. You're just being a little bit more mindful of, is what you're telling yourself empowering or is it disempowering?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And if it's disempowering, is that congruent with what you want? So if you want to take your career to the next level, there are certain things that you're going to have to do that you haven't done up to this point, correct? Now, what is your mind telling you? If it's saying, don't do that thing that I believe I need to do in order to get to that next level, well, now you got a problem. And so you can feel if what you're telling yourself is empowering or disempowering. It's very easy. Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? And truth be told, we have a lot of people around us that just want us to be safe, right? And so there's a lot of not so great, well-meaning encouragement to just play small, be safe, don't take that risk, right? But now you can feel there's a distinction between what your heart truly desires and your fears, your doubts, your insecurities. Because when you think about what your heart truly desires, it feels right, it feels good. And when you're hearing those little voices in your head telling you why it's not safe or you shouldn't or it's a bad idea, it doesn't feel so good. Now, I'm not saying here that you go out and you just be reckless, because inner guidance will tell you, don't jump off the building, right? It's not like, oh, I've released my fear, and so I'm going to go and do dumb shit. We're not saying that, okay? But you do need to be more self-aware that your negative emotions are indicators of your limiting beliefs. Because inner guidance that's saying no to something feels different than fear saying no to something. Inner guidance is like when somebody asks you to do them a favor and you think to yourself, yeah, I don't think that's such a good idea. That's going to conflict with other things that I have on my calendar. Even though I feel bad declining that, my inner guidance says no, right? Fear would be, oh man, they're going to hate me. Somehow I have to come up with the best excuse ever so that they're not mad at me for the rest of my life. Right? It's a different feeling.
Jody had an interesting thing in the chat. She said, funny story. I climbed a mountain. I speak on that and how I had to change my mindset from what got me to the mountain and what got me to the peak of the mountain. Jody, can you just elaborate on that for half a second?
Yeah. So little backstory. I am a former athlete, former collegiate basketball coach. And so growing up as a competitor, you're taught the only way that you win is if you come in first place. And so through my training and everything, so I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro back in 2019. And through my training and everything, like that was my mentality. Like I have to push myself. I looked at it just as any other competition I've ever done in my life. And I was, when I got to the, when I got there, I was in a group of 10 and I was last the first few days. Like the first day I was dead last, and I was devastated because in my head, that means that I was losing, right? Because the only way that I was taught that you win is if you come in first place. And so next day, of course, get up, get right back to it. I'm last again. And I was so far last, like there was a part, like I was praying that the trail did not split and I had to make a decision. Even though I knew that there was a guide behind me, I was still worried, getting lost on the other side of the world on the side of a mountain. But on the third day, one of the guides told me, he was like, Jody, you realize there's no prize for finishing first. He said, somebody's already done that. He was like, you're winning because you keep going and you getting up and continuing each day. And of course, like, oh yeah, of course that makes sense in the moment. It really didn't click until the summit night. And that was when I said, F everybody else and anything I've ever been taught, and just do what you can, do your best to get to get there. And I was 30 minutes behind everybody else. And I was dead last out of our entire group, but there's not a person on this planet that can't tell me that I did not win, even though I came in last, right? And so when I do talk, I tell my experience of the mountain and how I had to shift that mindset of what got me to there and being able to, and I had to shift it fairly quickly. It was a 7-day hike, so I didn't have a lot of time to waste, and how I had to shift it in order to do that. And a lot right now with what I'm struggling with is I have had a lot going on in the last 3 months, but it's like, I know the message that I have can help a lot of people. And it really aligns a lot, Alicia, with what you talk about, because I am also, this is just so ironic, I am a mindset coach as well with high performers. And so it's getting out of your own way and getting out of your own mind of figuring out what exactly is going to work for me. And kind of like how I did on the mountain, it's like, I got to figure out luckily I don't have to figure it out as fast, but I'm not a very patient person. So I'd like to figure it out faster. But being able to shift that mindset, and I can already tell just being immersed in our call earlier today, Mark, and then this tonight, it's like, okay, really what I need to do is keep myself in the room with all of this stuff. So, because she said it earlier, the action builds confidence. And that's so true, because now I'm like just thinking of all these different things that I could be doing. But for me, it's just, it's figuring out exactly what is it that's going to work best for me to get those speaking gigs.
So
Very
good. I love that, Jody. You know, you said something that I think everybody can relate to, and it is, like I said before, it's a different journey for everyone. And a big part of our confidence is getting into alignment and congruent with ourselves. That program that you had in your head was maybe great for a while until it wasn't. And then it became a limitation. And that's what we have to remember, is that many of our beliefs, the intention behind it is good. The mind grabbed a hold of something when it grabbed a hold of it, and it felt that it was necessary and beneficial when it did so. But once it's locked into the subconscious mind, if it becomes a limitation for you, you've got to be willing to release and let it go. You've got to be willing to up-level your consciousness so that you can embrace and click into, using your terminology, which I absolutely love, because that's what it feels like when we click into a different belief that now is in alignment with who we are becoming, who we aspire to be, that next level version of us. Boom, limitations gone. Because now you're not pushing against your own beliefs. That's the hardest part about taking action. When you have conflicting beliefs, it feels like pushing a boulder up a mountain, because your mind is incongruent. You've got that inner conflict. And so this is obviously just one simple exercise, but you can embrace it as a tool to help yourself recognize the cue, right? The feeling of, oh shit, here we go again, just bumped up against that same thing again. And you know it. You've encountered it so many times, whether it's lack of focus, getting pulled in all sorts of different directions because you haven't clicked into your alignment yet. And a lot of that is because we have these ideas in our mind that other people sort of planted in there, whether consciously or unconsciously, the other speakers that you looked up to. So one of the things that I frequently will see, especially with clients who, I even had a session today, imposter syndrome came up, right? It's because we've got this idea of what it's supposed to look like. What is success supposed to look like? And if that doesn't mesh perfectly with what you in your heart want for yourself, now you got a problem, because you're never going to be successful according to your own mind. And so we have to recognize that those are just beliefs. There is no universal law of success, meaning it's different for everyone. And real success is being in alignment and congruent with yourself so that you feel incredible doing what you're doing. And anything that does not feel incredible, anything that feels like you're trying to be someone that you're not, means it's time to look at the beliefs. Now I want to do one more quick little exercise with you before I am officially out of time. So this is going to be a very, very, very simple visualization exercise. I will not be doing any hypnosis with anyone in case anybody's got any resistance to that. But I do want to exercise the power of your mind. So I know we didn't have a lot of time to clear away the weeds in your mind. So you may notice some as we're doing this exercise, but just let the feelings come up and let the feelings pass through, okay? And get yourself into a place of just allowing your mind to visualize, imagine, picture, pretend, even if you're not a visual person. I always say, if you worry, you're visualizing. You're just visualizing what you don't want, right? So trust me, every one of you can visualize. But if you don't like the word visualize because you've got some kind of belief that you can't do it, then just imagine. Okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes, drop your head down, take a couple of really nice, deep cleansing breaths, and just bring yourself into this present moment. Just observe the sensation of your breathing. And isn't it nice that you don't even have to try? Your body just does it for you. Notice that as you breathe, you naturally feel a little more calm, a little more relaxed. And as you exhale with each breath out, just breathe out any thoughts, any uncomfortable feelings that come up. If you're noticing any agitation or resistance in your body, just breathe it out. Release, relax, and let it go. So that you're naturally breathing in a little more calm, a little more relaxation, a little more well-being with each and every breath. And easily breathing out anything that does not feel like your highest good. And as you allow your mind to just wander, showing you little tiny glimpses of what success looks like and feels like for you. When you are confident, when you feel that inner knowing that what you're doing makes a positive difference. That feeling that you get when someone expresses genuine gratitude for what you shared. That shift that they experienced because of you. That moment when you realize you are doing work that you are being called to do. Notice how your heart feels open and expansive. You feel a smile on your face. There is an inner knowing that you'll know just what to say. That the right people who need your message are going to be there. They're going to hear your words and they're going to feel it resonate in their being. And just play with this idea for a moment. What does it look like? What does it feel like to be that confident version of yourself? When it's so normal, so natural, so easy that you just do it automatically. Notice how you walk, how you talk, the confidence in your prices, even when you raise them. That all the support you need is always available to you. And that you are that support for others. Now, remember, any of those tricky little feelings that needed to come up to be released, just welcome them up. Let it come up, let it pass through. What do you need to let go of? Now's the time. Let it come up, let it pass through, release and let it go. Breathe it out. It's old. It's not true about you. It does not serve you. It doesn't serve anyone. Are you willing to let those feelings come up, let them pass through, release, and let it go? And feel yourself lighter and freer. Give yourself one more blissful moment of feeling the excitement, the passion, the enthusiasm for being the successful, confident, inspiring person that you are divinely called to be. And let that smile get nice and big, feeling so good. Turn that good feeling up. It feels so good. And when you're ready, you can allow your eyes to open, bringing those good feelings with you. And with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Wow, thank you so much. One question, Alicia, if somebody wants to work with you, what do they need to do to get a hold of you to do if they need
You
more of
can
this?
learn all about me on my website, which is aliciakramer.com. I do offer a free consultation. So if anybody would like to talk about what your goals or challenges are, take advantage of that. And I do have a ton of other resources available. So if working one-on-one doesn't feel like the right fit, there's plenty of other materials that I have for free and paid on my website that can support you.
Love it. I just put the link to the business success course in the chat window so people can check that out as well. Alicia, thank you so much. My goodness. It's just so refreshing to have somebody who is able to speak our language and also acknowledge kind of how we feel. Mr. Toastmaster, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, at this point, Alicia, I just can't tell you how much it feels to have you here with us and to share your bliss and your serenity. It feels wonderful to have those feelings. And as we move forward, I hope everybody can recreate these moments and help themselves come back to this place where we feel so good. And I thank you so much, Alicia. And I don't know, are you staying over the break and joining us for the workshop? Was that part of the plan? If so, welcome. I'm not sure what you and Mark talked about, but
I don't believe so. I'm going to just answer a couple messages in the chat real quick, and then I'm going to go and enjoy some time with my family.
okay, well, that's wonderful. And thank you so much for joining us. So in our meeting, we'll take a 10-minute break now. So we'll be back at 7:50. And unless anybody has any questions they want to ask Alicia now before we go, we do have 5 minutes officially on the agenda. So does anybody have anything that Alicia could help them with? Yes, Blaine.
I was just trying to look how to put my hands up on the chat window, but I'm glad you caught me. Thank you, Alicia. I did enjoy that. It's coming out of it, I'm in this deep relaxation state, so it's hard to get my energy up here right now. I think you answered in the second part, but I was going to flip. We're trying to get rid of the negative emotions, but how do we energize ourselves or get ourselves motivated to put ourselves at risk? And I think you answered in the second part, because it's like, well, is that the trick, or do you have any other comment that you can share on that?
Well, there are a couple of different things that you can do. What you've got to remember is that associations in the subconscious mind are incredibly powerful. That's why you'll see Tony Robbins doing different like anchoring processes at his events and things like that, because when you can create the state that ultimately you want, and this is a hypnosis technique, it's sometimes used by people who practice NLP. And Jody, I'm going to get back to you, but yeah, so my background is I'm a certified hypnotherapist from the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, which is a nationally accredited college of hypnotherapy. I'm trained in NLP, I'm trained in coaching, I'm trained in all different types of energy modalities, but I've been doing this for now, oh goodness, not 20 years, but a long time. And so a lot of my methodology is from hard knocks, cleaning up my own stuff and then working with clients and learning and really refining a lot of nuances over the years. But some of the principles that are frequently taught with NLP or that you do in hypnosis are really powerful tools that you can use to create positive associations in your own subconscious mind. So for instance, if you wanted to feel more focused, a nice, clean energy, clear-minded, highly focused, then you are sort of cultivating that state when you imagine yourself feeling in that zone state, right? You imagine yourself, how would you look? How would you feel? How would you be acting? How would you be breathing if you're in that state? We've all experienced those moments, one of those moments where you're just dialed in. Everything else around you just sort of fades away and you are so hyper-focused on that thing in that moment that nothing is really even present in your conscious awareness. When you practice that, I like to use the word practice because essentially that's what we're doing, right? We're using our mind to imagine it, to feel it. Feeling is a key here. Remember, we impress upon the subconscious mind with our feelings. So you get yourself all charged up, just like you're giving yourself a pep talk, right? And you're making sure you're not slouching, you're getting yourself in the right actual physiological state as well. Well, now you've got all those chemicals being produced that are congruent with that state of being. Your thoughts are starting to align and be congruent with that state of being. You're in that state mentally, emotionally, and physically. Doesn't mean you need to be doing the thing, right? But you're in that state as though you're doing the thing the way you want to be doing it. Now you want to create an anchor. Okay, we're using the power of the subconscious mind here. What is your anchor going to be? In hypnosis, we'll oftentimes press together the thumb and index finger of your hand, take a nice deep cleansing breath in and pick a power word like focus. And we reinforce that over and over and over and over and over again, because each and every time you do that, deep grooves in the subconscious, right? That's how we form a habit. Repetition and emotion. Okay. Two little keys. So now you're really creating the foundation of that association, that anchor. Okay. Now you've got to reinforce it. So do that exercise over and over and over again. Get yourself back into that state, really create it, reinforce the anchor. Now you start to actually tie it in your mind with other things. So do you want that focus when you're writing? Do you want that focus when you're on Zoom? Do you want that focus when you are making your sales calls? Whatever the case, whatever associations you want to have. Now you're starting to, because you've practiced the feeling, now you can start to link it with other things that maybe in the past you had an old association with. So if, for instance, your old association was, I feel drained and depleted and I don't want to do that thing, you don't start there. Okay? You start with something that's easier for your mind to form that association with first, and you practice that first until it's easy for you to trigger that state at will just with your intention. I want to feel charged up. I want to feel clear. I want to feel focused. Bam, you get yourself into that state. Now you're going to start to create that bridge between the feeling that you can easily access and the thing you want to associate it with. So now you see yourself doing the thing, feeling that feeling, and notice that you got to sometimes practice getting yourself back into that nice charged up state again. And then you just keep creating the association, the anchor. So hope that helped.
Wow.
Good advice. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Alicia, thank you so much again. I can't thank you enough for what you've just done for this group. As you could tell from the interminable focus that everybody's had on every word that you've said, it's really resonated with us. And I can't thank you enough for coming to my rescue with the group and agreeing to do this and giving up your Valentine's evening to do this. Because
It's my pleasure.
cruel.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful. Thank you.